Hello, hello, hello. Guys, we are here. Richter is here. We have him tied up. How you doing, Richter?
It's a little snug. I'd like you to loosen the ropes, but otherwise good. Otherwise good.
You're like, I cannot breathe. We are happy to have you guys. Richter, fun dude. Been coming through, been supporting me. Appreciate that very much. He and I have been rapping about different facets of D&D. I've been stealing some of his ideas and plagiarizing it for quite some time. But before we hop in, family dump. Appreciate you. Thanks for coming in and dumping on the chat. But Richter, tell us a little bit about yourself, man, before we hop in today.
Okay. I'm an old
or
guy.
Don't.
I'm an old guy. No, I've been playing Dungeons and Dragons since right around 1980.
Let's go.
I started with the red box.
Wow.
And that's not probably the red box you see on all the t-shirts. It's the one with the dragon coming out of the water and the warrior and the sorceress or wizard chick. I can go look for some art. Because I'm that kind of guy.
I see it right now. Okay, got it. Wow. Love it.
Yeah, so it's one of the older ones. That's kind of where I got started with it. And and I've just been gaming all along the way.
Dang, man. And this was that red box is what?
That was
first
basic.
edition? Basic, you're right. Basic rules. Okay, got it.
At that time there was Advanced Dungeons and Dragons and there was Basic, and it kind of was two arches of the same game. One made simpler, if you will, which was the idea behind Basic, and then there was Expert, and then at that point I switched over to Advanced Dungeons and Dragons because I'd already worked through those lower levels because they had it broken into levels, the boxes.
Got you. Sort of like the first Baldur's Gate.
Yeah.
That's sort of my closest exposure to 1E, 2E kind of stuff. Amazing.
So then eventually they shut down Basic. But that was a whole Mistra was the world that all lived in and stuff. And some of the some of the ones you might remember or you've heard of. There was Keep on the Borderlands was set in that world. God, I have it right up here, and I'm blanking on the
I know that feeling. You're like, the knowledge is so close.
Isle of Dread.
Isle of Dread.
I got my bookcase right here, and I got a Goodman Games reprint for 5th edition of a couple of my modules.
Oh, damn.
So all I got to do is read the name of the book, and bam, then I've got it.
And but 5th edition reprints of those previous modules.
Yes.
Rowdy.
So, that's what I've been doing. And then I got interested in this modern, more social gaming setup because I started listening to the Inspired Incompetence podcast.
Okay, I'm not familiar with it. Give us kind of the elevator pitch of Inspired Incompetence.
Well, they play Pathfinder 1st edition. They've run through 2 APs now. The first one was Skull and Shackles, which is, pirates. And you play pirates, cool. And then now they're doing Tyrant's Grasp. If you have any issues finding them, they originally started as Swiss Army Scorpion, and they're now Inspired Incompetence. And inspiredincompetence.com is where you can find links to the Discord, and you can talk to the players and me if you want to catch up with me later.
Drop that in there, Inspired Incompetence.
Yeah.
Now, did I misspell incompetence? Who can say? Incompetence? Tense or tense?
Tense, all E's, I believe.
Tense, yeah. Cool. Okay, that is not the correct site. That's because I put an extra E.
Because you misspelled it. You got the E and the P swapped, buddy.
That's part of the joke of incompetence I was going for.
You nailed it. You nailed it right there.
So that's where we can find you. Love it.
Yep. And with them and their current one, I started doing a podcast about their podcast. So we run
a countercast.
I guess, yeah. I think of it as, fan yakking myself, but I'm an older guy, so I don't
fan yakking.
I don't always follow. But yeah, so that's what I do now, and that's what got me looking around in the various things, circles, where I met From Afar podcast.
Yes.
And David, and that's where I encountered you first, because he was doing a Between Two DMs.
Yes.
So that's kind of the thing. And then I got, I've been on Tales from the Tavern with Luna a few times, just as a talking head. And
Luna, got you.
So, yeah, and I've done some charity streams.
Heck yeah!
Just as somebody to get involved and be a pain in the ass. So
I love that inspired incompetence. It's good. I always love knowing kind of like the home base, or kind of the digital kind of crossroads that can most easily lead me to an individual or their work. I love that. I should have reached out to you to ask about that, because I was curious, but I didn't want you to feel like there had to be an answer. You know what I mean? But I'm glad that we have this now. Amazing. So I want to come back to this, Richter, because like there's a ton of eggs I'm sure you can crack for us. Yo, Vog, get in here. Bugles up, Ledge. Smooches. But you, in our pre-stream, right, whenever I was kind of getting this sound right, and you were extremely patient and gracious with me, which I appreciate, you were telling me about the first D&D game you ever played, and you described it as having no books and no something else. And that was, I think, as you were setting the stage and the timing of that, you then sort of segued and described that situation by saying The Empire Strikes Back.
It's true.
Had just come out, right?
Yeah.
And at which point you then said that you saw a screener, more or less, for The Empire Strikes Back, which is not something George Lucas often does.
The only time he's ever pre-screened a movie.
The only time. Okay, so...
And perhaps you might know why. So if you recall, in The Empire Strikes Back, Han's going into Carbonite. Princess Leia goes, I love you.
Yeah, I know.
The written line for that was supposed to be, I love you too.
Yeah.
Harrison Ford said, bullshit. And he says, I know. That line is the reason George Lucas pre-screened it, because he went off script there. That's why he pre-screened the movie, because he wasn't sure that was going to work.
Wow. So he was moment
that's it.
is what
that's the whole thing. That's not even the cool part in my mind for the movie. I mean, let's not talk about how iconic that I love you, I know is now. That's right. Valentine's Day at Disneyland and pins and t-shirts and all that crap, because I see that all the time. But they had some footage of the Hoth monster, the Wampa.
The Wampa, yes.
In the cave. They had some footage of that they cut. They also cut about 30 minutes of Jedi training.
Whoa! Now,
so
in the swamp with Yoda?
Yes. So when Luke says, I've come so far since the failure at the cave, right? We haven't seen squat. We've seen like this little thing. There was more training in there. Wow. So you really had a sensation of he'd learned something from the failure at the cave, which is he walks in and cuts Vader's head off.
Right.
It turns out it's not Vader, it's him.
Right.
And all that. You actually have a sensation something's happened, that there's this training. And then on top of it, then he says, you're not ready to face Vader. And of course, you as the fan watching the movie are like, but he knows all this stuff.
Yeah.
So.
Okay, that is maybe a Twitch premiere lore drop right there. I had no idea. What the fuck? So, okay, so what? Wait, but then you also said that you've spent so much time trying to like find that footage, because like that
find any evidence of it. For example, to give you a thing, at the start of the training, Yoda's he holds up a stick, right, and it's I don't know, it's maybe a yard long or something.
Classic Yoda.
He throws it into the air. And then he tells Luke, cut it with the lightsaber. And Luke, all cuts it in half. And he's like, I got this. See, I did that. And Yoda's like, a real Jedi would have cut it into 7 parts. So you're like, oh shit. Well, then you got one where he's running. Yoda's in the backpack and running, flipping, doing his thing. Yeah, you remember this.
Sure,
so he's
course.
doing it. And all of a sudden, out of nowhere, up goes the stick. And then with Yoda on his back, out comes the lightsaber, and then you cut to the ground, and there's 7 evenly cut pieces on the ground. I found the stills for that online.
Yo, unbelievable work.
Because keep in mind at the time, not a lot of people knew that there were, about cutscenes. You only saw them on specials or something like that if somebody showed you, right? Or bloopers, right?
Yeah.
So if TV didn't do that, nobody knew it was there, right? The bulk of the world didn't know it was there. So I go to this pre-screening.
Well, especially in the day of film, right? I mean, digital media, that shit gets leaked. Like, it's way easier to store that, double that.
Right. Well, and now when they release DVDs, they say, here's the cutscenes. They give you the cutscenes.
Yeah. God, that's wild. That is wild.
Part-time private eye. That's what I
you're like, I am available for hire. That's insane, though.
So it is. And for me as a little kid, right, I go see this and my dad goes, don't say a word about what you saw. Say nothing, because he didn't want the movie spoiled. Because
he didn't see it. You only saw the
No.
Got it.
It's a real quick rundown. My aunt worked for 20th Century Fox Music, which is now gone. She used to get tickets to all kinds of stuff. The guy that played Darth Vader, whose name is escaping me at the moment, he would come into the office and scare the secretaries in costume.
You're like, he did actually have horrible burns across his... My God. Okay, so in costume? Jesus Christ. Can you imagine having access to the Vader costume, like, off-lot? That's insane.
Yeah, so it's... so this stuff would happen. She got tickets to amazing things and all these neat opportunities. So one time we're visiting, she has 3 tickets to the pre-screening. So my uncle grabs one. He takes his oldest son, my cousin, and then he's going to take me. My other cousin and my brother are off to some birthday party, and my dad has to go off to the birthday party. He wanted to pull me out and throw me into the birthday party.
He's like, you are 14, but I need you to drive your brothers to this party.
No, I wasn't even that. I'm 7. He's just like, forget that. That kid doesn't deserve this crap.
That's funny. Well, because the first one had come out and was huge. Got it. So this is the second.
Right.
Got it.
So this is a big seeing it before it comes out in theaters is huge deal.
Sure,
right?
sure.
Star Wars was impressive. It was massive. So he does that. My dad picks me up, and picks my brother and I up. It takes us out of school the day, like one of the days that Star Wars is open, right? Early in the opening, not opening day, but like day after.
Yeah, that week.
Takes us out of school. We run down to a matinee. We watch it. Now I finally get to talk about it and go, there's stuff that wasn't in that I saw that wasn't in the film, Dad. And I start telling him, he goes, that Brian, you're wrong. You're wrong. Because we don't have access to deleted scenes like we do now with on DVDs and stuff. So I'm like, crap. I know what I saw. I've remembered it all these years. I know what it was. I'm trying to find some confirmation of someone to say, yeah, there was stuff cut out. And yeah, it sounds like you saw the scenes. And,
sounds like George Lucas gaslit you as a child.
No, he didn't. But he's got such a good wall of defense around him. That gaslights me.
Yeah. No. Oh, man. I'm trying to think.
Because I totally believe from everything I've heard that if George Lucas knew that I just wanted him to call up my dad and say, hey, your son's right. There was stuff cut and sounds like he saw it. I think he'd do it. Just because I would love to put that to bed and say, no, see, Dad, I wasn't telling you stories when I was a little kid. I wasn't imagining this stuff. But
God bless.
Such is life.
And you described that scene between Han and Leia. Was there, because I've been a part of pre-screenings, and sometimes there will specifically be like feedback cards, right?
Oh,
or
no,
like
there was
interview forms. So there was no feedback at all.
No, none.
Interesting.
None. This was they put us in a theater. We watched it. We walked out. There was no popcorn, no fancy, no nothing.
Interesting.
We sat there for 2.5 hours because that was the original length, and they cut it down to get it closer. So
maybe there were people in there kind of watching the crowd.
Oh, I'm sure they were, because this was the only way to get tickets was to be part of the 20th Century Fox family somehow.
It's insane. We got them. God, that's so crazy. Okay. So we went down that rabbit hole, which was delicious because around that same time, which I guess was you being 7 years old, was
Yeah.
whenever you were heading to your first D&D game. So break that down
Well,
for me. Like,
my
who
first
DM'd
D&D
this?
game wasn't. I was headed to my first D&D game. I was at a family get together with my uncle, with my aunt, with the cousin I went to see that with. And
Was he older or younger?
He's a year older.
Okay, great. So he could maybe verify some of the scenes, right, as a child.
Yeah. Well, if we could get a hold of him now. It's, you grow up, things go the way they go. He lives
Sure.
on the East Coast somewhere in New York. And my uncle does, as far as I know, my uncle talks to him, but they don't see him much. So
Got you.
That's the way it is. Not
Those
that I'm aware
deleted
that
scenes
there's-
really rocked him. He
he just said, that's it. I got to get out of California.
he's like,
I'm
I'm moving up to the Catskills, and
Yeah, exactly.
until I can cut this stick 7 times.
Yes, you have Richters in New York that are related to me, buddy.
Oh my gosh! Listen, if you're walking the mean streets, unbelievable. Okay, so break it down for us. So like you're at a family gathering.
It's a family gathering, and my brother and I and my cousin, 3 boys. My other cousin is a girl. She lives in Southern California, and I think Irvine still.
Cool.
Anyway, we're there. We're talking. My uncle plays Dungeons and Dragons. Heard him talk about this stuff. He's into board games. He had one called, I think it was Dark Tower.
Yeah.
So
yeah,
you'd
yeah,
move,
yeah,
you'd
yeah.
push the button on the tower, and it would tell you some sequence or give you gold or whatever it would do. So it had that. So, we knew that. But my cousin is talking to me about how he's had them play. And we're like, man, that sounds exciting. And I go, well, let's play. And he goes, oh, we don't have any dice. Well, what do we need? Well, we don't have a D20. And I go, well, 4D6 is 4 to 24. If we subtract 3 from the roll, we get 1 to 21. I mean, that's close enough, right? So we make characters, rolling up stats on this thing. It was the thing. We make characters as best as my cousin can remember. And he starts, running the game. And eventually my uncle comes over and says, what are you guys doing?
Wow.
And, boom.
We're playing pickup D&D, Unc.
Yeah. Without books, just from somebody's memory about what we can do.
There's a timelessness to that exchange that's very poignant.
And then he gets interested and he starts listening and watching, and then he kind of takes over running.
That's a true uncle. He's like, all right, hold up, let me roll up my sleeves. Let me set down my scotch.
That was my first experience. Now, I had my dad's family, my mom's family in Los Angeles area.
Cool.
Northridge and then the rest for one group, and then the rest of them were kind of spread out a little bit. I want to say my aunt lived in Burbank, and I don't remember where my uncle lived before Simi Valley, but he was in Simi Valley when that was being built.
I was about to say Simi's like Simi is exactly. It's a very interesting place. Like
he moved to Simi Valley, and one of the new building developments he went to, he didn't have a grocery store for 30 minutes.
Good God, that's hilarious. He's like going to Topanga.
That's all changed now. Yeah, that's all changed now. Well, Canyon Country.
Yeah. I'm doing a play right now up in that neck of the woods, and it's its own. It's so funny how rural California can get so quickly. Yeah. Outside of LA, I mean, it's like, 35
and the
minutes.
thing is I drive it now, and I come through where Great America is. That used to be like the only thing out there, all by its little lonesome, whatever, right? You had to kind of drive around the mountain there to get to kind of some sort of little tiny civilization. Now it's just civilized the whole way.
Yeah.
I'm like, it blows my mind.
That's intense.
I go back to we always stayed at my generally always stayed at my mom's family's place, and there I would sleep in my aunt's bedroom because she was only 5 years older than us, so it was just us all kids kind of thing. She was only 5 years older. Got it. So it was just like the kids would be there, and but she had received the basic box as a gift, and so it's sitting in her bookshelf, and I'd seen it, pulled it out, looked at it, opened it, and went, I don't know what that is, put it back. But now I'd played, right?
Yeah.
So when I get back there, I pop it open and I'm reading like crazy. I'm doing it, and she gave it to me because I had an interest in it, and I was just working all that stuff out.
Wow.
And then,
That's awesome.
you know, that's how it got started.
That's amazing. Okay, so that's such a beautiful, because like my first exposure was a straight up, not even 3.5, like a third edition box in kind of a similar situation. And I just remember, yeah, I mean, like each answer sparking 2 more questions, and that kind of continuing for a very long period of time. So you get back there and you're devouring this box, right? And did it then turn around and like you ran a game for your cousins and siblings, or like
No,
how did
my
it next
brother-
manifest itself from
My brother
the box?
didn't want to play.
Classic.
So I was creating it and then running myself through it.
Wow, I love
So
it.
I would do it and lay out monsters, and then I'd go adventure it as a character and just, you know, roll it out, right? Roll the good guys, roll the bad guys, and oh, I died. Okay.
That
And then-
is
so it was
amazing.
that for a while. And then I
like
started
that is
getting-
epic. I mean, Richter, let's I mean, can we just circle in on that real quick? You like that level of passion, we all know that. Like that's me like playing G.I. Joe's versus Batman with myself. Where I'm like, no one else wants to like stage a war between the army and all the Batmen we have. This seems reasonable. All right. Well, yeah, see you later, haters. But like that exchange where you are so interested in something that you're like, I mean, you're creating the dungeon layout and the monster stat block, and then just sitting there rolling and tacticking, you know, sort of strategizing against yourself. That's beautiful. That's beautiful. So do you consider yourself like that's like the ultimate DM and player scenario? There's no higher expression of that. Like if you had to binary slice it, do you view yourself more as like a player, more as a DM?
I would call myself a player.
Cool.
Looks like you lost video, my
Yeah,
friend.
I did. I just got I'm not sure, but I think I'm just having some internet
Oh, you're back.
spikes, little internet spiko. But please, no, continue.
So, you know, I'm not big on dealing with that. You know, the rules are the rules. The game master runs it.
Yeah.
I want to run it that way. It's not that I can't get it wrong. I can totally get it wrong. And it's not that I don't recognize it's cooperative. I do recognize that. I want, you know, the party to succeed. But you got to do it within the rules, right? And so that's why I tend to be a player, because I'd rather be the player supporting the game master than running the show. Although I have run, Family Dump was in one of the games I ran. I ran a Shadowrun game for him.
Let's go.
A year or two
Family
ago.
Dump is a hilarious handle.
Well, he's from Inspired Incompetence.
Okay, amazing. So do they stream? Like, is that a Twitch channel that I could follow?
No, it's a podcast.
Clearly not
So
a
you can do
DM.
that.
Hilarious. Okay, it's a podcast. Amazing.
It's a podcast, and
Apologies, Dump, for misspelling it, but I think I could do it again. Spell it correctly, that is.
Yeah. But that's kind of where it is. I mean, and then as far as my journey, right? I did that. I got into, I got my, would get my brother to play occasionally. I got the advanced books because the original basic set only did 3 levels, 1st through 3rd. Then I needed something else, right? So I got a player's handbook, and believe it or not, at the time, it was in a local town up here in Northern California, a place called Gridley. There was a hardware store. The building's still standing. It's not a hardware store, but they had the game books, and my grandfather bought me the player's handbook, which at the time sold for $10.
What a world!
What
a world!
I had that. I had, now I had unlimited character levels and all this. That was now all open. So, it was just a matter of accumulating the other stuff. And then eventually I got the DM's Guide. And the original DM's Guide has a random dungeon generator in there. So you roll dice and can generate a dungeon. And then you could not only just map it, but you could roll for what critters were in the rooms. So now you had a way to play solo. It was completely random. So then did that. And then I finally, got into the group of friends I got into just before middle school that I was with middle school. And they were, a lot of them were middle kids.
Mm-hmm.
So their older brothers had played
Present.
or whatever. And so I'm like, hey, you guys want to play this game, Dungeons and Dragons and all that? And they're like, oh, I've heard of it. Yeah, that's cool. My older brother used to play it. All right. So we get into playing that. And, that's really the formative time. And then I used to have to run for that a lot. I'd run for it when we could get together. I'd run it because I was the one that knew the most about it. And then the cartoon came out, I want to say, I just looked this up, 83, 84. And so the cartoon comes out. And now keep in mind, prior to the cartoon, it's Satanic Panic. So
yeah.
You
I
when
grew up
you're
in
talking
Texas.
about it, unless you already know somebody who knows what you know. It you put out these weird questions, and if they don't get answered, you just back off and okay, whatever,
dude.
It's because it's all
That's
secret.
me.
You don't want the crap.
For sure. That's
then-
me approaching whether or not people are fans of Kevin James's comedy. I'm very, very circumspect. I'm just like, right, have you ever heard of King of Queens? No, I know exactly what you mean. Okay, no, so please continue. So we're now in the second edition era.
No.
So the first edition
is
solo
still
box
first edition.
was them just like building out because it was first to third, and then they kind of stacked on top of that.
The basic, which is the boxes, that had stopped at expert and was like stalled because they were putting all their effort into AD&D. I switch over to AD&D because they've got the books, right? And as they're doing
Victor,
that,
is AD&D not considered second edition?
no, Advanced Dungeons and Dragons is first edition.
Interesting.
Second edition, they
because AD&D I and 2E I connect as one. Interesting. I know more about Advanced Dungeons and Dragons, but I didn't know that.
It is because it was originally released as Advanced Dungeons and Dragons second edition.
Oh, I see. Okay.
But they had the basic rule set. I don't know if you've ever seen the book, The Rules Cyclopedia, the Dungeons and Dragons Rules Cyclopedia.
Is it a history of the editions?
No. It's an actual compilation of the basic rules. The 5 boxes that they did to take you from 1st to 20th.
Dang.
Which is
no, I haven't.
one branch, and then AD&D was the other branch. Because remember, on the basic side, if you were an elf, that also told you what class you were.
Right.
So you didn't have an elf fighter or an elf wizard. You had an elf, and he could fight and use magic. So they had that branch. And then AD&D was like, well, you can be an elf wizard. You can be an elf thief. You can be an elf whatever. So they separated, your race and your class as 2 different options. Here, not so much. You're locked in.
Yeah. I love that. God, that's so wild. So let's pull back a little bit. In Plankton, that's a hilarious handle as well. Both you and Family Dump, I could spend 10,000 words about the different ways to
Holy
interpret.
Plankton is another inspired incompetence.
Okay, well there we go. Could be inspired hilarity because those are hilarious handles. Appreciate you guys coming through, supporting us, supporting Richter. In the realm of because I told you at least the Tuesday home game that I'm running began as a module, Dragon of Ice Peak, the 5th edition. But as we kind of moved across the world and they kind of course broke hard from what I had designed and planned for that area of the Sword Coast, and now they're moving across the map, I started really just pulling up different kind of adventure modules. Get in here, Dump. Appreciate you coming through. Appreciate the support. But in reading older adventure modules and campaign books, it was almost I don't even know how to describe it. Sort of like reading a newspaper from the 1920s, where I'm able to read it and totally understand what's going on. But some of there's
context that's lost. You don't get things.
Some of that was confusing, and some of it was almost oh, whoa, whoa, could you do that? That seems very dangerous. We are invading. I love it. And I just would love to kind of because I then stole a lot from Dark Sun. I stole a ton from Silver Marches, and I haven't really stolen from an AD&D campaign book. And so I'm just curious, you played the
Well,
boxes.
wait a minute. If you took some from Dark Sun, then you've stolen from an AD&D.
Well, but this was the 3rd edition one that I came across.
Oh,
like,
okay.
You know what I mean? And so maybe they are like very, very similar, but I know it to be the 3rd edition one, you know?
Yeah, I think they're all very similar. The difference being how you roll for attack, right? That's the main thing.
Gotcha.
A negative armor class was good.
Was good. The THACO. We're talking THACO now.
Yeah, THACO is a 2nd edition thing.
I'm a THACO wacko, dude. I'm balls deep in Baldur's Gate 1, which I bought like 4 months ago.
Okay.
And have been completely obsessed with.
So THACO was they used to have tables to hit. And it would say you'd find your level and you'd read over to the appropriate armor class, and that would the number would be there, right? Because they had crunched the numbers and put it in a table for you. So it was easy to go figure out, what do I need to roll to hit? What do I need to roll to hit?
Yeah, got it.
Yeah. And then that would be the thing. Then you'd have to add magic items or your strength or that kind of stuff. You'd have to modify it, which could make it better or worse. THACO was the idea on the character. I'll preload my strength, my dex, my magicka, and blah, 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 blah. And that's how you got THACO, right? To hit armor class 0. And then you just knew that, the number goes up if it's negative. If the opponent's armor class is negative, it goes down if it's positive.
By that amount.
By whatever that appropriate amount is, right? And the reason that it's like that is because D&D comes from war games. There's some excellent history of D&D books that are out. I want to think of one called, I think it's Of Dice and Men or something, I think is the name of it.
That is a great fucking title. Are you insane? It's a
and
great
that
title.
book
It's hilarious.
talks about where
Denzel
they
agrees.
got the idea and started basically, taking this war game stuff and then creating this kind of weird quasi role-playing thing into the wargaming. But the wargaming is where the formula to determine how to hit comes from.
Wow. Okay.
And so that's how you end up with THACO. And that's why it's negative, because obviously you subtracted your opponent's armor class from your roll, right?
Right.
So if you're subtracting and then you put in a negative number, then a negative and a negative makes a positive, which means your to hit number goes up. So that's how it all came together.
That is hilarious. So I have heard, I knew AD&D was more complex and specific, and that really is
it was, but it had,
in ways easier, right? But there's more incorporated in it to get to that number.
Absolutely. And it's what's interesting is the tactical stuff that we have now, where we stress so much map stuff and map tactics, didn't exist.
Yeah. No,
it wasn't in there, because this was a role-playing game. So you would, we'd use bottle caps, whatever the dice, whatever the hell we had, if we needed to map out a battle to keep track of what people were doing.
Yeah. Well, it's interesting. Most of the games I run historically have been online, but a lot over the past 2 years has now moved in person, which I've been really grateful for. Some of it has just been like, hired pro games. Some of it has been being able to play with people in person. Did a game at a brewery recently, which was a dream until dehydration struck. But there's small differences, right, between being in person and being online. And being in person, I think, it is so nice when someone has minis in a map or like a little, checkerboard that they can move. But for some reason, in person, to me, I don't need it as much. I don't know why online it helps for me to have just some sort of visual. But I bring that up because I play in this Curse of Strahd campaign with a good buddy of mine who's running it. And he's a fabulous DM, and he's also a bit of a craftsman himself. So he loves making all this stuff. He's built all these little pieces where he can almost make it interchangeable for building out this for that or that for this. Works really well for him. And I guess I'm just sort of I'm not sure in this moment what my opinion is. If I could only have one, because there's times where having a map slows me down. There's times where, there's a little bit too much focus on spatially exactly what's happening versus the kind of like thrust of the moment, like the actual conflict or the tension that's happening between this combat that's arisen or whatever. Because in these third edition books, some of these maps all pull from these third edition. The scale is like each grid is 100 feet, and it's meant to be like a map that's this enormous scale of like the valley. And that honestly is something that I think there should be more of, like pulling way back, being like, all right, cool. You guys are like in a war field with 150 combatants. We're not going to move everybody through initiative, but your little pocket of the battlefield is this. What are you doing?
Yeah, no, it's you're 100% right. And that one of the things that I for sure wanted to say in this, because it's between two DMs, and it's about dungeon mastering. One of the things I wanted to say is there's people that I follow loosely, okay, and I'm going to mention the one gal simply because she just had a thing. She brought it up. She goes, I found this new book. Some guy writes this great way to do it, how to manage it, and keep it fresh. And because normally everything's about the bad guy does something and the players have to go solve it. That's reactive, and I want them to be proactive. So I want I have my players write down their goals now per this structure, and great. But what I'm looking at is, if you pull from all the sources that give you inspiration, and I suggest reading as much as you can. I say read Verne, read Edgar Rice Burroughs, read Lovecraft. Read those things. Get some dosing in there. Read a bunch of other folks too. I mean, don't restrict yourself. Don't restrict yourself in genre. Read as much as you can. In doing that, what you're going to find is, yes, and even in TV shows, old TV shows, current TV shows, if you think about the ones that everybody gets excited and you get fired up about, there's a combination of, we react to things that act on us, and we got stuff to do, so we're going to go do it.
Yeah, exactly.
And you never want a singular thing like that. A good mix. And what we like is, we want TV shows to look real, right? We want our entertainment to look real. So maybe you are reacting to something that's happening. Okay. Maybe you're going out to do something. It depends. It just depends on the story and the moment. Use it all. Okay. Use it however you're doing. And part of what's there, which is sometimes surprising for me, is that, like, I'm going to reference the Dragon Magazine archive. And that was a thing that was released in right around 2000. Like
supplementary. Oh, okay.
No, it was a collection of like 250 issues of Dragon Magazine,
which was meant to supplement campaigns.
Well, Dragon Magazine was put out by TSR, and it was originally about Dungeons and Dragons. So how to play it, how to do it, how to da-da-da. It went on and started encompassing other games that they produced. Eventually, it talked about other games that weren't even produced by TSR. It went on this whole thing. The very first Paizo APs, Shackled City, Savage Tide, Rise of the Rune Lords, those were all released in Dragon and Dungeon magazine, because Dungeon was supposed to be a magazine of adventures. They don't have time. Here's a book, flip through it. Here's an adventure.
Yeah.
In my opinion, they got too much into adventures that had unique ways to solve them. And so if you didn't do the unique thing, you couldn't solve it. They got a little caught up in that sort of thing. But the point is, those were things that, here's stuff giving you advice, telling you about the ecologies of creatures. They had the Bazaar of the Bazaar, which was weird magic items, or how to use magic items.
Yeah.
One of the most important DMing things.
A good magic item suggestion is great to steal.
Oh yeah.
You're like, oh
and
shit.
One of the most important DMing things I ever picked up was from one of those articles, and it was about continuity. So make sure that somehow your story flows from one to the other. Like have callbacks to previous characters, even though it's not related, may not necessarily be related to what you're doing right at the moment, but have callbacks so that the players feel this continuity. Like it's not just this and then that. They have this continuity. They can feel some kind of continuity. And again, it's not about making sure everything's connected. It's providing just enough so that you have that feeling of continuity. And that when you have the big changes, you have those. So now these came out once a month. So 250 of those is what, 20 years of gaming wisdom? Go find it online. The PDFs are out there. And my thing is, read those things because they have great stuff in there, great suggestions. And you just
in Richter, you would recommend Dragon Magazine a little bit more than Dungeon Magazine.
Oh, absolutely,
okay,
absolutely.
Cool.
Just because it's Dungeon is right. Dungeon is more. It was more modules type, but smaller than a module. But assembled into a magazine. Right?
I would check out Dragon Magazine, dude.
I mean, and you need to go back. Like I said, you got to go back pre Paizo and when they spun, they did 3rd edition and then they spun Paizo out of Wizards of the Coast.
I'm not familiar with Paizo.
Yeah, Pathfinder. They make Pathfinder.
Oh, got it.
They started as a spin out doing Dragon and Dungeon Magazine for Wizards of the Coast.
Got it.
After they had secured TSR and all
it's such a the umbrellas and the exchange, and it's very typical whenever like passion projects gain traction, right? Is like the creators, the founders are typically really just interested in the product. You know what I mean? It's top end, and platforming it or monetizing it to the highest degree is rarely at the top of that priority, which is often rad, but it's just interesting, that exchange of kind of like confluence of smaller LLCs and people that were kind of contracted that then maybe wanted to do more or weren't able to or went and did their own thing. Like, it's just, there's a lot of passion that comes from that. That's amazing. I will totally check out Dragon Magazine. So Richter, this is super cool, man.
And let me give you one other top tip that came out of this. In my time, I had maybe access to about a dozen copies of Dragon Magazine. I only owned a couple early on, a couple. I just finally got the money and I was like, all right, here's the Dragon, let me go buy it. Because it wasn't, you had to be in the know, had to know game shops. Game shops weren't where I was, so it was harder to get a hold of it and stuff. But I read in, and one guy is talking about how his Dungeon Master, he notices his Dungeon Master has a subscription to Soap Opera Digest. Soap Opera Digest is a rundown of all the storylines in soap operas. That's all it does. And he says, why do you have this? And he goes, well, because I pop it open and I read the storylines, what's going on, who's doing what, who's got the evil twin, the evil triplet, the evil whatever, boom, 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 who's died, come back, new face, blah, 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 all this stuff. And he goes, that's just rich stuff for what I want to do when I play a campaign.
Yeah.
A villain dies, I want to bring him back.
He's
that
a brother.
Sounds interesting.
Yeah.
Let me do that. So then he goes, okay. And then he gets a subscription. So when he runs, he's got this thing to read through that gives him all these neat twists and ideas and all that stuff. Sure, all cliched and all that, but that stuff all works.
I think there is too much of a hesitation to avoid cliche, or too much of a hesitation to lean into cliche, because from Lion King to Hamlet to Star Wars, there's there's so many through lines where it's kind of like, okay, if you really break it down, son separated from father, makes it on his own, needs to redeem himself against those that destroyed his family or destroyed his family wealth or his dad or whatever it would be. And that trope or that cliche becomes so specific to a campaign whenever reskinned. You got to know how to put your own twist on it. Exactly. Like the coloring and the presentation is, I think, what really makes it compelling. Because even if we just break down the fact of like, oh, a red dragon is marauding over this stretch of land, like, I mean, maybe that pitch is a little vanilla, but if you really break it down, like how fucking crazy and intense that would be, like that threat, like in an era of horse and cart, something that can cover, 120 feet in a round, like that's insane. So yeah, man, like stuff like continuity for sure, that's huge. But some of those other things like soap opera twists, because I mean, I know you would style yourself maybe, as more of a player, but you've run a ton of games. Are there any other kind of, short list items where you're like, you know what, this was very effective. This got me as a player, or wow, I didn't see that coming whenever, this was done.
When you run a game, you want your players invested in your game, right? You want them to love that game and be as interested in every little thing you've got that you are, right? So let them be. When they come up, and this is one, to me, is one of the hardest parts about DMing, is you create the world, you create the setting, you create the space, and then you have to let your players fuck it up.
Yeah, sure.
I mean, straight up, that's what you have to do. They're gonna see that something's going to inspire them. They're going to take an interest. They're going to want to run with it, and it's going to fundamentally change what you put down. And those guys are going to break it and ruin it and mess up your toy. You got to let them do it. And the deal is you can work with them to do that, and giving them that gets that buy-in. Now suddenly they're interested in your stuff. Don't be afraid to put something out there that is generic, tropey, cliche, because here's the thing. The people you're playing with, they're going to put their own, just them interacting with whatever that, even if it's a trope or whatever, it's going to put your own twist on it by doing that. So you as the party, of players, right? The game master, the players, put out that generic thing, and then your interaction with it will put your own unique twist on it. You don't have to work super hard to do that. Now, it doesn't mean, hey, don't put in the, if you can do voices, don't do the voices. If you can do this, don't do that. I'm not saying don't do that stuff. Do it. But in the parts that weigh a DM down, like, oh, I got to prep all this. I got to have this. I got to have that. Don't sweat a lot of that stuff. Shadowrun taught me that. And because I'd run Shadowrun and I'd think, oh, this is great. And then I read the books that are the stories based on the playtest, and I go, holy crap, I'm not dialed up high enough. This isn't as brutal as it should be. We've been playing sissy Shadowrun, so I dial it up, right? And I start running it with all the
You're running Shadow Gun
stuff.
Let's go.
Yeah, it turned up. We dialed it up. And now keep in mind, when we ran it the sissy way, we still
anytime we dialed it up. It's like, get some water. That's amazing.
But what that did was, a lot of times I'd have just a general, here's the path of my story. I'd have an outline, and that's it. Yeah. I'd have some ready to go stat blocks, and that's it. The players with their, ooh, so-and-so's screwing us. No, so-and-so's doing it. No, it's this person. It's that person. They would basically write the damn story for me in real time while I was running. So they would fill in all those little details, all those little separate machinations, and somehow I'd make it to the end at the end. But they were building that all for me with all their, thoughts on what it is. Don't be afraid to use that resource. Your players are eager to provide you with the plot twists, the hooks, all that stuff. Just listen.
That's interesting. Yeah, there's so many ways that can slice. And I think regardless, you're, in my opinion, absolutely correct about the fact that sometimes, well, I mean, certainly you want to be listening to your table, and certainly you want their opinions or their interpretations to be received and sometimes directly influence the reality of the game you're about to run.
Exactly.
But fundamentally, sometimes they're crazy fucking ideas just
Yes.
need to be viable. They don't need to automatically work, but like I that's something that I think saw it on like more of a Reddit post and then was like, yeah, that's a good point. But just really feeling like, hey, I need to just be more aware of, what I am, like when my party is trying to do some crazy shit. Doesn't mean necessarily that they can like one-shot a dragon with, enlarge reduce or whatever the fuck. But like, I don't want to automatically be so locked into how I think it's going to go that I don't see that they're doing something that actually could be really cool or even more cool than whatever I had in mind. I would just toss out though, because this is why I love Between Two DMs, because it is so, and I haven't played Shadowrun and I'd really like to, so I can't really speak on that in terms of, it is a system and like what its reality is. But for me, with homebrew, especially whenever there's a lot of character backstory in it, I want to be, the only way it can really work, I think, ultimately, is like, you need to have some gospel level truth. Like there needs to be some absolute inflexible rigidity to some of the things you lay down in terms of plot or lore or motivation or historical fact, whatever it is. Like that can't be changing all the time. But what can be a beautiful like allowance of that flexibility, and really what you're speaking to, Richter, which is like allowing your characters to infuse really specific details or opinions or events into the homebrew or the campaign, is to leave some things blank. And I'm like, because I don't like how that works for me is we'll reach a point and maybe it's like it's now somebody from someone's past that's coming to settle a score, and whenever they present themselves in this antithesis is sort of coming up against the party, to cut to the player and be like, now fill in the blank vengeance paladin. From your backstory, we talked about how whenever you were in Waterdeep, there was a man that came to the convent and was turned away. Describe this man. Describe what he sought. Describe the manner in which he was turned back. And then taking that detail and using it to now color this individual that is whatever, is coming to get his pound of flesh or coming to tell off the paladin or coming to disrupt the party's plans, whatever it would be. But like that, because basically what you're speaking to, and I don't mean to, I don't mean to put words in your mouth. I more mean to like reciprocate what I'm hearing, is a beautiful allowing of the DM to almost be inspired or informed by the table's interpretation of the world and the lore. And that's how that shit gets collaborative, Like, so I love that.
Yeah, I would say this. I know that there are going to be things in the campaign that are at that gospel level.
Right.
No, it can't be changing all the time. But be open to the idea that it could change.
Yes.
And that, that's on the DM side. Be open to the idea that some of your foundational stuff could change. You don't have to, but it could. Maybe maybe your party goes hog wild and does something super cool and it's earth shattering and okay, well, you changed it. Or, maybe they never get near it.
You just inspired me. I'm writing some stuff down.
All of that stuff, all those different things, and the fact that you could change them, that's there. And for me, if you can, avoid setting the gospel stuff. Have in your
leave
head
stuff blank. Yeah.
Have stuff in your head that this is how it's going to work, but leave the details of the gospel that is unmutable. Leave that out if you can, so that it's always available for you to tap and use somehow in the story.
That's cool. I think like that. I love hearing that because like I struggle with that flexibility sometimes, and maybe it's the performer in me that is sort of like, no, a script needs an ending. You know what I mean? Like feeling like I have to have some understanding of the arc before setting out. However, in some of just like running like, an 8-shot, or I recently was running a 4-shot for a group of 7 to 12-year-olds who are wonderful. and we're now 3 of 4 of the way through, and they're it's going to be a really nice finale. But in that one, and it was aided by them being children, and instead of a Bloody Mary, I've got some juice. I guess Bloody Marys are juice, tomato, whatever.
Yes, tomato juice.
There's such a freedom to like the early sessions in a campaign, or such a freedom to an 8-shot or a 4-shot, because you're so readily able to just reach into the bag of characters and present them. Or, they're like, why is that guard walking away? And now it's sort of like, oh shit, he was just exiting because I needed to describe the scene. But now why is he walking away? You want to stealth on him? You want to investigate? You want to insight? Success or failure is about to determine the reality of something that was never established. But here we go. And with that in mind, man, I'm curious, because I think two, if you had to break it into a binary sense, there's a little bit of a like starting with the ending in mind camp. And then there's sort of a build the colors of the world and leave the ending blank camp. And I get to play in some games, Dump, and I'm gonna get Richter's opinion on that, because 3 days ago I had my fucking bard turned into a lich within the Amber Temple of Barovia, and I've never, man, on either side of the table had a more jarring experience than basically being told to like hand over my player sheet. I was just like, what?
Huh? No, I don't do that.
I mean, I've got these.
It's funny that you say that, because that was a reality of playing D&D back in the day.
With the alignments, though, eh?
Well, yeah, but the DMs were the supreme authoritors in the game.
Sure.
So if you mess something up, give me your sheet. You could just. It was, and that's the way it was done. The thing is, that teaches you it teaches you a certain way to play. And now,
yes.
Where I'm the DM, I'm telling the story, I'm setting the scene. You're, as players, you react to that. That's just the way it is. Your chance to be proactive is, like I said, if the game master's looking for stuff and looking for your buy-in and some creativity and needs to tap a resource, that's how you proactively do stuff. But you're always in that reaction to what the game master's presenting, right? And so it's funny to hear you be like, what? Give up my character sheet? And we were like, no, yeah, here you go.
Yeah.
And
well,
it was,
I didn't push back. I was just stunned. I was like,
I get it. I get it. Because it's you can't have.
Yeah, Plankton's onto it. Plankton's like, hell no.
Oh God. I'm the man. Yeah, the thing is, it was a journey that you took, and you were hopefully taking it with someone who would be nice. I know there's a lot of tools nowadays to try and make sure we don't, hurt people and stuff like that, trigger stuff, do whatever. There was an awesomeness to just taking the goddamn journey and taking the chances.
Well, it's definitely scary, and I am just gonna
I get it.
I'm the man up in this piece. Like the like that's what I think was always presented in terms of kind of like, and I mean, I'm not saying that's what this is, right? But that's sort of the archetype of kind of like the like, the like marauding DM is some version of like, no, like your character, this, that, the other. But there is a harsh reality to like, somebody needs to be brokering the reality of the world. That's just like fundamental to it. Plankton, I agree. You need to do everything you can to meter Richter's power. but in the exchange, and for everybody out there, I mean, this is some Curse of Strahd spoilers. I won't give away too much. And then just while we're on the topic, Richter, I'd love to know if you've played or run Strahd, and if you've done that with any previous iterations, because someone on Monday was telling me that the 2nd edition Strahd is even more gnarly than the 5th, which is easy to believe.
I played the original Ravenloft module.
Christ.
Which is where Strahd was introduced.
Christ. Okay. So hang on to that real quick. Because I want you to tell me about that in reference to what just took place on Sunday. God damn it. And I could waste so much time describing this. This is my 2nd character in this campaign. like, and that's why I'm just like, God, you know. And I've never lost a character. I've come close, but it's and the guy that runs it. Oh man, yeah, I'm struggling because there's so much going on. The guy that runs it is his name's Brian. He's been on the stream a bunch. He and I ran an 8-shot where we switched off DMing for each other's characters in the same world.
I have an immediate question about
Please.
this Brian.
Yeah.
Does he spell his name with an I or a Y?
With an I.
I'm so sorry for you.
You're like, I'm suspicious. Okay, then you've met him. You've clearly met him. No, he's truly he's the godfather to my son. Like he's a dear friend. He directs a ton of my stuff. He's an incredible person and creative and a great dude. And he and I butt heads constantly in D&D, right? because we both love it and we're both such creatives, and we also know that we give each other a ton of leash to just, you know, do whatever or be like, hey, can we talk about this? What's up with this? So let me just give you the longish version because I want to really tuck into Strahd because this rocked me, all right? There's 6 of us in this party. The DM is the 7th. Half of us are actors. The rest are artists. Like a lot of us are in LA. 2 people have moved. So most of the game is in person. 2 people zoom in. And dude, the way that the backstories ended up lining up was basically that some of us, we almost came in like in pairs of 2, which is pretty typical. But me, I'm a rogue turtle by the name of Tarragon. Very sort of like San Diego, like super laid back. And my brother is a cleric. He was a Haragon, like a rabbit folk. And the idea was that our dad more or less had been a wizard that adopted a tabaxi and a Leolin and a turtle and a Haragon. And basically like trained us in different regards. And I always wanted to be like a wizard, but he trained me to basically be a spy. And I was like, all right, Dad, you know, whatever you need. And he would send me off to stay with different families. And I never really questioned why he was asking me about where the battlements were or you know, how many foot soldiers were within the keep or whatever it would be. We get bamfed out. We're in Barovia. We're meeting up with these other people. We make it to the town of Barovia. We make it into the infamous death house. And it just so happens that the Sunday session that we're about to run happens to land on August 18th, which is my wedding anniversary. So, a year and a half ago, my wife and I are going up to basically like Big Bear, and we're chilling. And it's a Sunday night game, and I'm not there. And I get a text from my buddy that's like, I just got killed. And I'm like, what the fuck? It plays itself out. Like I come back, they're explaining what happens. You know, and basically I'm like, well, was my character still alive? Like, would he run after him? Like, you know what I mean? And understandably, Brian was like, man, like, unfortunately, like, I'm not going to retcon the whole thing. Like, it's happened. And I was like, okay, we leave. Shit unfolds. My character ends up through a random kind of dice roll on the loot map, getting a raised dead scroll while they're basically in like Valeki. And nobody else in the party wants to go back because this guy's been dead a long time and it's going to be hard to go back. But my turtle's basically like, I got to do this. I dip. And I talked to Brian. I'm like, hey, am I overplaying this? Like, I just can't see a world where my character would like have a raised dead scroll and continue like going to, you know, wherever. Like he's going to get on that shit. So basically he tries to like solo back to Barovia. Nightmare, fade to black. This new bard comes in as if he's been trapped in Barovia, and I just wanted a character that would participate and help, and he's serving Shantea, and he was an acolyte, and then just basically became a poet, and he's chilling. Goes with this new folk. Maybe they can help get him out of this hellhole. They go to the Amber Temple. Shit hits the fan. We go into another room that also has a fan that just has a ton of shit thrown up into it. You know what I mean? There's like, people are attacking, they're coming out, like these hags are going crazy. There's people in the party who's unclear if like it was role play or just what they wanted, but they're like desperately going after these amber stones. And we make it into this lair, and this dude gets killed by these vampires. And my character, beholden to Shantea, sees all this evil, sees these amber stones that are more or less these portals to like dark power. And he's like near dead anyways. He's had all this shit. He's got these skeletal wings. He touches a stone, rolls a 6 on his charisma save for a 14. And my DM describes me slowly becoming a lich. Described it very beautifully. I've already talked for too long, so I won't describe it the way he did. But the point is that he comes back and he's like, what does this guy want? What was he seeking here with this party here in Barovia? And because of his backstory and what had happened and him feeling like he'd failed his god Shantea, he basically was like, redemption. He's looking for redemption. That happens on Sunday. Give me your sheet. Cool. I'm just sitting there like, what's happening? My friend had given me these bard spell cards. I'm like, here are your cards. Like, and dude, I was so stunned, partly because I knew that on Tuesday in my homebrew game, which is all about the struggle between Bala and Shantea, it's really I got the inspiration for this bard. They're about to come across this bard of Bala. And so like, well, now I'm just way off on a tangent. We're like, now Brian and I are both like players in DMs and scenarios where our players are like in desperately dangerous situations with a lich. And it's just hilarious where we're like, shit. But so that's my huge tangent. And all that to say that like Strahd is insane. I can't believe that my character was turned into a lich off of a roll. I hate it, but I kind of love it. And I certainly respect it. And even though it kind of feels unfair, I know it's not. It's just unlucky and also a situation that I put myself in to be exposed to that unluck and a poor result. Have you played 5th edition Strahd? / if you have, how does it vary? And if not, tell us about Ravenloft.
I have only played one thing, and we just kind of skipped to the final battle because it was like a bonus from a charity thing. So we got to fight Strahd.
Zip into Strahd's lair.
Yeah. Ravenloft, the original module, was just Strahd's castle. So you'd go in.
Got it.
And you would take on the castle, and the setup was he invites you in, he gives you a fine dinner, and then goes, try and survive until morning. Ah ha ha, poof. So you are then, trying to explore the thing, find him in his coffin or locate him and destroy him. And did not go well for me. Went all to hell. I ended up becoming one of Strahd's minions because I was in the castle. I had no magic weaponry. And, because we were creating it for a Halloween game. Now, then Ravenloft became a campaign setting. And I don't know if it still is.
But hold up real quick. He killed you and then turned you into a zombie.
No, I just became I said, I'll be a loyal servant. And then when I got killed, if I was good enough, he was going to make me a usable undead of some kind, I guess.
Oh, wow. That was just sort of appealing. You were like, that'd be cool.
I just sold out. I was so frustrated. I sold out.
Oh, interesting. So the battle's going on and it's just like hell. And you're like, what do you need?
Well, yeah. And I'm like, okay. And I'm hitting my other party members, dude, you got to loan me a magic weapon or something. Cause everybody brought other characters they'd had. I created one and didn't get to, buy magic items but I got to create a character. So I bring my character in and like everything needs magic items to hit magic weapons to hit him. And I'm like, dude, I can't do shit. And my buddies are, making fun of me and all this other stuff, and, I'm like, dude, give me a +1 dagger. Give me anything. I'll fight with it. And they're like, yeah, no.
What? That's whack as fuck.
That's fine. That's fine. So I said, all right, you bastards. You're going to be dicks to me. Here we go. And I sold myself out.
That's a great response. Okay. That's the full circle. And I stand by that. Great move.
But, the thing is, then Ravenloft became a campaign setting, and Ravenloft would go out and suck people in to do some sort of eternal torment.
The best.
For what? Because it was like a semi-sentient plane thing. I don't know what they were doing with it, but that's, they would do that and then torment you. Figure out a way to torment you. So, if it's still doing that, I don't know if they still have it doing that or what Barovia and Ravenloft.
Oh, there's quite a bit of torment. Yes, I would say the torment is still present. Still very much.
But is it still, there's multiple realms in Ravenloft. There's Barovia, there's Lord Soth has a realm from Dragonlance.
Well,
'Cause he got
I don't know
relocated.
about Soth. I would say there is definitely a... And again, these are obviously spoilers, but I mean, like, I think of... there's not any other planes. There are definitely other, like, towns across Barovia.
Right. But that's...
But they're all controlled by Strahd.
Okay, yeah. So it sounds like they got... What they did with Ravenloft is there was Strahd's realm, and then there were other bad guys that had realms.
Oh, interesting.
And they were all in the horror thing, and you could pass between the realms. They weren't planes. They were all in Ravenloft. You could pass between the realms, but only if Ravenloft wanted you to.
He is the
So
land.
you escaping, let's say you're escaping from Strahd and you go to Lord Soth. He was the big bad in Dragonlance. He was a lich and had banshees for retainers and shit like that.
Wow.
Whatever, the skeletal knights or something. He was a knight of the rose, and he was I think he was a skeletal warrior. He wasn't quite a lich. But if you got from Barovia to his realm, that was because the land wanted you to, and that may be because Strahd wanted you for some reason, and the land wanted to thwart that. So you'd get these you could have these complicated things. So I haven't delved into it, because to me it was Ravenloft was always super dark.
Sure.
And it was too dark for me. Or like, it's okay
I feel like all of your players, I feel like both Dump and Plankton are like, that is bullshit.
Oh no, I'm not their GM. I'm not their GM.
My bad.
The
My
GM
bad.
they're talking about, it's not me. Although,
okay, somebody back channel me their information. That's hilarious.
I did do it for them, and and Holy Plankton there. He absolutely grenade launchered at close range and blew up the bad guys and his party members.
Boy, bugles up for a hero. That's some legend stuff. That's what I was trying to do with my freaking bard, man. I was like, I have enough charisma. I think I can save on this. If I can just expend all the uses of this amber, then nobody's gonna be a vampire or a lich or a thing.
Hey, when you talk about the brutality,
didn't work
about the earlier editions.
Yeah.
One of the things that I see that players, in my opinion, players need to learn is sometimes you need to run away.
Yes. Sometimes
the dice aren't with you. Sometimes you got to bail. And Mark, now knowing how
it's in my class.
And sometimes, you need to learn those lessons, because we right now, when you have the tabletop RPG space, you have video game RPGs,
sure,
that are scaled for you.
Right.
So they always stay at an appropriate level. You can defeat them. When you are in real life, you can
AKA
sometimes
Elden Ring.
But when you're in real life, you can say, "Hey, I'm going to go take on the governor of my state," and he smacks you around because you don't know how to get any traction. You don't know that stuff. So there are times, thus, that you could go to do something and the bad guy shuts you down, right? So in game, it makes sense that the bad guy might be powerful enough he can just inflict you away. We don't have that. We expect to be built up to that. A lot of players that I see now, especially starting at 3.0, they want to do the video game. I'm not saying that's a bad thing, but you also got to open up to the idea that that's not how it all works.
No, that's an important distinction. I mean, and I think and there's a lot in play there, right? Because some of it is like almost generational, not in necessarily the like world POV sense, although there is maybe some of that there, but more just in terms of like, for where you're coming from, Richter, like obviously digital RPGs were not really a successful thing until like, late 80s, early 90s. I guess there was some text-based stuff, but it wasn't like as compelling as D&D, which you're playing in person.
Well, those games, they didn't call them RPGs.
Okay, gotcha. What do they call them?
So, those were video games.
Just video games, got it.
They were just video games. Now, they were cool. They had neat elements, but they were video games. See, role-playing game was tabletop only.
Gotcha.
So when that transition started, when I started noticing people saying, "Oh, it's an RPG. This new video game is an RPG," I'm like, "What do you mean role-playing game? What are you talking about?
How could it be? Yeah.
You're what are you doing?" And like, "Oh, well, you can pick different, answers to questions." And I'm like, "Yeah, but you've got 3 options or 6 options. You have a limited number of options. It's not really role-playing. And if you don't have other people to play off of,
Yeah, that's true.
But that, that's become a thing that people like because they got all this, they got a richer interaction and they got to feel like the character, right? I'm playing, oh God, I can't even think of the guy's name in, the rail. Good Lord. I'm totally blanking on it.
Is it a video game or?
Shepard from, God Almighty! I can't believe I'm blanking. It's a huge one. Shepard from video game.
You're trying to think of the
Commander Shepard, and it was Mass Effect. There you go. Sorry, I could see it. I could see all the art.
Could see
and all
it.
that
It was
stuff,
close.
and it was like, ah! But I couldn't.
I'm glad
pull
we
it
got
forward.
There. Yes. Summon it.
Use your words, Richter. Yes, I need to use my words. That's a great game. You really get engrossed in it and all the stuff that you're doing in that. To me, it's not role playing. It's me playing the game. And yes, I can make different choices, but it's not role playing.
Yeah.
Because the whole all the infinite possibilities are not available to me. You know what I mean?
No, I do. And I totally feel that. I mean, I think that's also what sometimes can feel limiting about how some DMs run even a tabletop, right? Is like you really, and ultimately like Rule 0 needs to exist for so many reasons. And obviously like, I think a good rule of thumb is I wouldn't want to play at a table with a DM that I wasn't willing to be like, well, you got it. You know what I mean? But more often than not, you would like to feel like you could really take any number of routes, right? Or use any number of tactics. Some might be more reasonable, some less, some more likely, some less. But you'll never have that same level with a video game. I feel that. But I was going to say, I think part of that, Richter, is like, in these early games, there's no unconscious or death saves. It's just like you reach 0 and you're dead.
Yeah.
And I think that sets like a really significant tone of like, whoa, it's so much harder to heal. There's no short rests. Like it's so much harder to avoid death. And like, it requires so much more reticence and, using that kind of espionage or gaining of knowledge in a way that is way more realistic and historically accurate. So I can
tell you the original rules. You healed 1 hit point a day.
Damn, that's crazy.
That was all you could recover.
That's crazy. So we're going to take like a week off and come back.
So I've got enough hit points. I take a 50-point hit. No magic. I'm down for 2 months.
That's
if I want to heal it up.
That's insane.
It was crazy.
I kind of fucking love that though. Like the idea of I've heard it kind of being like where, like a long rest is treated in 5e in an intense game can be treated as over a week. Mm-hmm. So like you only get spell slots for 7 days. Like that is so much harder on the player, but also in ways maybe easier, but could be more challenging for the DM to really find a way to kind of like scale that. So this is amazing though, man. Let's because there's some questions that I'm contractually obligated to ask DMs, and then we'll have to slide into the rapid fire section because that is requisite. But are there any aspects of being a dungeon master that you don't like? Or like if you had to pick one where you're like, man, like I hate fill in the blank.
I don't know that I have one that I hate. I just like playing more.
Got you. Yeah.
I like being in somebody else's world, especially like I said, knowing you create it, it's your toy, and you got to let your players break it.
Yeah.
You know, and that's what makes it fun. So I guess that's the part that I would dislike the most. I am hesitant to say hate, but that's if there was some way I could create my toy and not have my players break it, that would make me the happiest. But you can't, because if I do that, then it's that exact video game thing that I hate, which is you only have certain options and that's all you can do. And the interaction really can drive it and take it to cooler, better places. Things that are super memorable.
That's something I've learned in improv comedy is like the more I'm able to really be flexible, even whenever I think I know what's going on, the better the scene will be, because the more plugged in I will be with my scene partner, i.e. the table in this, you know, protracted metaphor. Are there any class types? And this could be historical, because I mean, like, again, I'm a Baldur's Gate board now. So I know all about where it's like, actually, druids can only be played by, you know, these type of races, you know? Like, is there anything that you have found, like, for me, it's the monk in 5e. I love them, but it's like DMing for them is its own little subtext of prep and interaction, because there's no poison. They can understand every language. They can run across walls and stuff. You know what I mean? So there's so many things where functionally I'm having to kind of accommodate for that. But is there any class type in D&D, in 5e or previously, that was you particularly loved or found challenging?
Bards used to be really hard to get.
Interesting. And we're talking about, like, because bards didn't come in until when? Third?
They didn't come in. They were in Advanced Dungeons and Dragons. So they're in the first player's handbook. They're back in an appendix, and you had to adventure as a fighter for so long, and then you do so long as I want to say like a magic user, and then you could become a bard. So they kind of broke the existing multi-classing rules a bit. So you had, and I'm trying to do this from memory. So if I got the spellcaster wrong, I got it wrong.
But something like that you needed to incorporate.
But there was some thing where you had to do that, and then you were officially, you know, a bard, and then you could start using magic items. Yeah, kinda. So you know, you had that, and they sounded so cool because they could take, you know, your drums. Because they had drums, they had the horns of blasting, there was some other lyre of some kind. They had some musical magic items that could do stuff, and bards could do so much more with them. They could make them do super cool things.
So like existing magic items could really be top-ended by a bard. But in my mind, in this creation of a bard, because like I feel like gaining levels was so much harder than it is now. Or rather, not even so much harder, or it was harder, but that was because the expectation was that the game would move much slower, or your character will die. You know what I mean? So how high of a level would it take to become a bard in this example?
I want to say it was like 15th or something. So you had to do that. And keep in mind, insane. there was no top end on the levels. You could. It was unlimited.
You didn't
for
stop
humans.
at 20.
Yeah, wow. There was no stopping at 20. You'd go much higher. I think the wizard spell projection new spells capped out at like 37th or something like that level. So you'd go
37th level.
Yeah, that's when you had all your spell slots that you could ever possibly get as a wizard.
And would you have multiple 9th level spells? And what up, Tormaron?
Yes.
Get in here. Bugles up, legend. So you could have multiple 9th level spell slots?
Yeah.
What the fuck? That's awesome.
Yeah, fireballs weren't limited. So, you know, you threw 37 D6 if you were a 37th level wizard. Yeah, it was amazing.
Dude, what a world. I think we're talking about advanced D&D in this case, right? Or is this first?
Yeah. That's first edition.
Yeah.
That's everybody's first edition.
That is like positively wild. Like that's truly, truly insane. I mean,
Oh yeah, it was just wide open. There's a lot of stuff. Now you did have other restrictions, some of which, certainly don't fly today. Like, if you were female, your strength was capped at a certain score. If you were male, you had, a higher score than that. In some cases, they had, if you were a dwarf, you could not be a wizard. You could be a cleric, not a wizard.
That's right. That was so bizarre. I've seen that in Baldur's Gate.
I don't know why they did what they did with that. To me, it's the third edition opening that up is cooler. But part of what I thought was neat about it was that you had those restrictions. So you had to play, if I want to do this, I'm doing this. If I want to do that, I'm in this branch. And so you were kind of limited, and the limits helped. Now, saying that, I want to point out that Gary Gygax did write an extended article in the first edition Player's Handbook. And in that, and I suggest, if you haven't read it, go find yourself a first edition Player's Handbook or PDF, find that article, read it. In there, he says, hey, if something doesn't quite work, or you don't like it for your game, or you have something better, then change it. Fix it. Do your own thing.
This is your game.
Don't be limited by the framework. Don't make that the whole thing. Do the deal. Victor, that said, they went straight ahead with how they built their framework and what they did. They didn't worry about your home rule, but they were telling people, use your homebrew stuff. Feel free to do that. Do what you want with it.
Yeah, that is a wise advice, sage counsel, right, across any edition, is like, it needs to be fitted to what you have going on in the table, or for your home edition. Richter, can you just give me 2 seconds? I just need to assist. I need to free my dog from the confines of this. Just give me just 1 second. I'll be right back.
Yeah, no worries, man. I'm all alone. Hello there. Victor is unsupervised on stream. Yes, this is a bad thing, but it's okay. He'll be coming back shortly. No, Basic was the first thing I played. AD&D was the thing I grew into. Poor dog. I understand. I've got a dog crashed out on the bed behind me here. She's a sweetie, though. Basic was interesting. What was the most interesting about it to me was that it got stuck for about, I want to say 5 to 8 years, when they just had the 2 box sets before they finally put the rest of them out.
Sorry about that, guys. What did I miss?
I was unsupervised on stream.
That
Twitch
is
will be
my
sending you
that
an
is,
email.
I was about to say that is my fault, guys. Have we been flagged? I gave my sweet pup has a little. Doesn't matter. It's so funny when something gets stuck for a dog, and it's like, that ain't stuck, my boy. That's a great question, Tormaron. I did hear some of that, just in terms of like where you began and where you really got hooked. When would you say? I feel like 3.5 is whenever D&D like hit another level, and then that happened again with 5th edition. But do you interpret it that way?
Me,
I mean, from your POV.
3rd edition was the thing. I mean, 3.5 was just a tune-up of 3rd edition. Got you. So 3rd edition was the big earth-shattering move for D&D. And
that's because it was getting rid of THAC0?
Well, in part, but in the very beginning days of Dungeons and Dragons, they had people that made products for Dungeons and Dragons.
Right.
And then TSR got big into shutting that shit down. Just kill it. third edition was, hey, let's open it up. You can make whatever you want with the open gaming license. And at first I was super excited. People put stuff out and it was pretty good. And then it just became this glut of stuff. I mean, they had stuff, everybody and their brother was producing stuff. And it was just terrible. I mean, it just...
In terms of some of that quality just nosedived.
Oh, the quality nosedived hard. So then it became, okay, you got to look at it. Who's got what? You know, is this something I like? It's okay. I got dogs that
we're so
blissfully haven't done it to me yet. And yeah, I mean, Plankton saying 4th edition was a tank. 4th edition was horrible. But here's the thing. 4th edition was doomed from the beginning because they brought a guy into project management who'd never played Dungeons and Dragons and didn't want to play Dungeons and Dragons. In the interview, he goes, I'm not going to play it. I don't need to play Dungeons and Dragons to create a great game.
Huh.
So you don't need to know anything. You don't need to play it. You're going to have a winner. And no, they did not have a winner. But I blame that on Bill Slavisek.
That was the project manager.
No, he wasn't the project manager. He brought in that project manager. Bill Slavisek created some games and they pretty much kind of went down into the dumpster.
Interesting.
The stuff he made wasn't that good.
Well, that is ultimately going to have the effect across the board, right? It's like, and sometimes it's tough because what you're first exposed to will really have an enormous impression in terms of like your takeaway of the system or of the game.
Oh yeah.
I mean, I mentioned this earlier. I'm going to just toss it because I love this discussion of the editions. Like 3rd edition, I made a character, but never ended up actually getting to play it just because of like really more my Judeo-Christian household than anything else. But I was like exposed to it. I built out the character. I was pumped on it. And then whenever I really started running 5e a lot, I would go back and steal from 3rd edition books. But a lot of this, even you just suggesting Dragon Magazine, etc., you know, there's so much we could go back and grab. Whenever you run a 5th edition game now, Richter, are there any things that are like automatically ported over? Like, you know, does lightning bolt automatically ricochet and go the full 120 feet? You know, like, you know what I mean?
Yeah,
like,
I haven't run. Oh, that's not true. I have run 5th edition. I try and run it the way they have it. The things for me that come across are, you know, it's not interposing hand. It's Big B's interposing hand. Because that's the original spell name. It's not Instant Fortress. It's Dairn's Instant Fortress.
Cool.
So the original magic items were things that the players of the original stuff in the Greyhawk campaigns or the other campaigns. That's why you have Bigsby and Dairn and I'm trying to think, Melf.
Yeah, Melf Tested Arrow. Yeah.
All that stuff comes from actual players that contributed something to the game. Okay, those were players in the what you might call them playtest or in Gary's home game or whatever, and they added stuff to the game and it went in with their character names. Stripping that out, I get why you would want to do that, why it ports better. I understand why Pathfinder would do it because they don't, you know, I don't want, you know, we got to separate a little bit. I understand why you would do some of those things, you know, but at the same time, I'm like, you know, we have a whole discussion about get your players involved, let them break it, right? Let them mess with it. That's what it is. You know, Tasha's hideous laughter, all that kind of stuff was in there.
And that's because like these, like, because her character name was Tasha.
Yeah, that's her character. The player's character name was Tasha, and apparently there wasn't a spell for it yet in the lexicon, and so she said, "Hey, I want to do this," so they put it in.
I love that. Man, that is so rowdy. Like I think that's also a good indicator of what a license we have to homebrew and create on our own. You know what I mean? Like how so many of the things that we enjoy in game or as part of the lore or kind of the ethos of the multiple systems that we're discussing, that a lot of those began with nothing more than, hey, can I do this? You know what I mean? Or the DM being like, hey, you know, Richter, like, you know, between events or before the session starts, like, what kind of a sword, like if there was a magical sword at the end of this dungeon, like what would it be like? You know what I mean? Like I think about the Vorpal sword all the time, where I'm like, how, someone was just like, dude, come on, let me cut his head off, like again and again, and then eventually was like, all right, fine, fuck, on a 20, you cut his head off.
Oh yeah, like, I'm sure. The Ring of Contrariness, I don't know if that one still exists.
Wait, break that down for me.
There was a ring called the Ring of Contrariness. And that ring, the description was, when you have this ring on, I want you to be like a 4-year-old not doing whatever you're told to do. That's what it makes you do.
Got it. No. Just makes you petty.
That's exactly it. And it's a cursed item, but I think they dropped that, or they dropped
cursed items are hard to make work. Like just because parties are so not expecting them. And then they hit.
The thing is, they make the game. One of the guys that I play with regularly forever talks about a cursed spear, a backbiter, that he carried everywhere. And even when he did finally activate the curse, which is you go to throw it and you get a 20 on the die, then it whips around and hits you in the back with that critical effect.
Oh my gosh.
He's like, because he took it everywhere and he'd use it and it would never break. It would always carry his weight because the game master wanted that curse to go off so bad. He knows it stays. It stays. And he thought, wow, it's indestructible. This is awesome.
Yeah.
And then he finally gets it off, and they had to go on apparently a series of adventures to lift the curse. But once they got it lifted, he kept it. He goes, no, I'm keeping this damn thing. I'm never going to attack with it again, but this thing never breaks. I'm keeping it forever.
He's like, it's a magic item.
Yeah. So, it's, there's stuff like that just, it adds and makes it memorable. And as a dungeon master, and you can extend this as a storyteller. You never know what little thing somebody's going to find and that they're going to love and latch onto.
Oh my God. Yes.
And what you do with that, because in a book, you could find out that some little character's really loved or whatever, or in a movie, somebody loves it. I mean, they just had that, not just had, but what is the one with Star Command, right? It's supposed to be the movie that...
is it a system?
Toy Story, right? Toy Story.
Okay.
Has got, what's his name from Star Command?
Oh, Buzz Lightyear.
Buzz Lightyear. So Lightyear was the name of the movie that was supposed to be the movie that the kid watched and why he wanted his Buzz Lightyear toy, right? They had a character in there, the little android cat Socks. I saw Socks and I said, oh my God, they're going to make $1 million on that stupid little cat, right? The few items they had with Socks sold out instantly, right? It was hard to find any of it. It's hard to get it. Socks is this character that everybody loves, right? Nobody knew that was going to be the winner, right? But they can only react to it. You can get that as a DM. You can find that one little thing they hit on and go, oh.
Yeah,
and you can react to it so much faster. So now you can weave it in there and capitalize on that.
I agree. I mean, I think any good DM is looking for inspiration and like following it, is listening to their table. But like great DMs are really cueing into the things that they come across that deeply impact them from an excitement or an emotional standpoint or an interest or curiosity, however you want to style it. Like my wife had never seen Game of Thrones, and we're going back through and we're watching it. And it's crazy to me because I've watched all of it, and I guess it's been maybe a minute now, but to rewatch and have the same experience of being like, wow, this is insane. But in that same way, like I just feel like, the more you play, the more you find what you like. And then the more you play with other people, the more you get to know them. And you can combine those things, their interests, what you found successful. Like, I love that, man. Well, I'll tell you what, like, this has been incredible. Like, I don't know enough about the old systems. Like, I really, really want to know more about that. But before we move into like so I'm going to look up some of the things you suggested, like of Dice and Min sounds absolutely insane. Some of those Dragon Magazine articles I'm definitely going to find. But I want to know before we do this rapid fire, man, like, like, you know, and this is maybe more just through the experience of maybe how it used to be. I don't know. I've never been in a first edition dungeon, you know?
Yeah.
But like, can you talk about stuff like traps or,
jeez.
You know what I mean? Or like,
okay,
you
so
know,
traps.
like, yeah, break me off on traps. So like
I'll give you some traps. The original Temple of Elemental Evil. Okay, the original deal, which had
and that's now Princes of the Apocalypse, huh? In the 5th edition.
I think so, yeah. And they have but that original one, there was traps in there that was where it was the trap, a 40-foot by 40-foot section of the floor would slam into the roof.
Whoa, 40 by 40.
Yeah. And that literally, because I read that passage, the passage on it, that it was saving throw. Yeah, right. Not a value like what you rolled to make to survive. It was, yeah, right. Okay, so they had things where it was like, no, you
every
stepped on
DM's
this,
like,
you're
that's
done.
the shit I'm looking for.
Oh,
like,
yeah. Yeah, it's there. Some of that stuff was really, really brutal. The idea that you get a saving throw all the time, yeah, it did not exist. There was some stuff where you walked into it and it was like, guys, no, there's no way out. But my rogue has evasion. Yeah, no. You know, you're in a 20-foot deep pit and the red dragon's breathing fire on you. There's no evasion in that spot. You know, my evasion, I find the cooler spots. You don't find the cooler spots when you're in the tin can and the blowtorch is blowing the hell out of all of it, dude. You're done. So there was stuff like that.
You're dead, Brian. That's fucking wild.
And, they had, pit traps were all.
Yeah. I think of pit traps as being the one,
Covered pit traps, extremely useful. And they're used. Yeah.
Very valuable.
Every layer should have one. More than one, I think. Because you're walking along.
I do love a good pit trap.
And into the pit you go.
And then
it becomes an obstacle to get in and out for the players. Like, do we leave a plank across it? Or do we leave our escape setup? How do we do that?
And Tormund raises a good point, just because like in those situations, like taking damage was way, way more significant because it was harder to get it back.
Yep.
And because there was no death save. Like if you're approaching 0, you're like, this is the end of my character. Like the
impact, like we talked earlier, video games. What happens when you die in a video game? You go back to your save point and you do it again. I've even heard at my own table with guys that played first edition D&D go, oh, well, I want to play this on hard mode. And I go, whoa. Hard mode? They're like, I want to play Pathfinder in hard mode. I said, so I don't want the stats to be so high. I said, screw that. Don't use hero points. Don't have the protection from a save. Don't have the reboot. That's hard mode. And it's like, and quit equating your video game on hard mode where you get to save and don't lose your progress or your items with this, because death is supposed to have a consequence.
Yeah. The sword has left the scabbard. Go on, Richter. No, I'm with you, man. I'm with you.
And I think that one of the things I've heard in the online TTRPG space is, hey, lean into those failures. Lean into when you roll a 1. And I say, hey, that's great. Lean into when your character dies.
Yeah.
Take it all the way. I didn't make it through the whole adventure. I had to bring in a new guy. I had this or I had that, or something took me out. It happens, right? I mean, I think if you have more exposure to different kinds of things, I'm thinking in the cases of, war movies, which for me as a kid was a lot of World War II stuff. You see that sometimes people don't make it, right? Yeah. You get exposed to this idea. And leaning into that is great, because then it means it's more memorable. And you know, Tormaron here is talking about that part you'd have to sacrifice a bunch of stuff to get somebody raised or whatever return.
Totally.
Yes. So sometimes you'd have to, you know, you had to sacrifice. Heck, I played in a game where if you wanted a resurrection, you had to cough up a magic item to go with the resurrection. That was part of the requirement for the spell. So not only did you have to meet whatever it was there, you also had to cough up a magic item. I tell you what, everybody carried +1 daggers when they got them, because I'll cough this up and not my sword. But you know,
yeah.
The thing is that's
almost
you know,
all
that's
of our
tough.
magic items. Respect.
You know, you're not selling them. You know,
No,
in that
you're
case,
like literally
you're hanging on to those crappy little items, because that's one you can sacrifice to bring yourself back. But it also, you know, there were times when you couldn't bring people back and you lost the stuff. So I mean, as long as you keep those, in my mind, keep those stakes up there, you get a better story, you get a better experience. You know, when I'm in a video game and I can't die, okay, and then I guess, you know, at some point in a lot of video games, I go, yeah, I'm kind of done with this. So I've played it out. Or I notice it's too much like this or too much like that, and I'm done. I'm never done with Dungeons and Dragons. I'm never done with role playing, because it's always
so many
got
ways.
Stuff there.
Yeah, so many ways. I completely agree with stakes, and I think there's no quicker way to lose a table, right, than have things like not matter. You know, be it, you know, an encounter, or be it the results of a roll, God forbid. Like, in just to sort of, I want to frame this, because I mean, Tormaron, I'm completely with you. And I think that maybe this was previously talked about by Plankton. I'm not quite sure. But when there isn't that threat, there's sort of a why are we doing this to almost anything. You talk about it in video games. Like, I briefly referenced it. I'd never played a FromSoft game or a Dark Souls game, and I got Elden Ring and was awful, but like really came to love it because it was so fucking hard. Like I'd never felt that level of terror in a game where I was like, dude, I gotta get the fuck out of here. Like, what is this? Where is, you know? And the system of the only way you can level up is by killing things and getting runes, but whenever you die, your runes are dropped at the spot of your death. So like the thing that killed you, you need to go back through to get your progress back, more or less. And it's super challenging and super frustrating, and it hooked me like no video game has in probably 10 years. Well, that's not true, but regardless, it really got me. And I think that for DMs, not even generationally, man, because like, you know, people can be intense across all spectrums, but when they haven't played first edition or second or third, it can be very, very hard to feel okay or feel like green lit about, you know, should I be like really, really retributive, or should I be very serious with the danger level, or should I use this power word kill, you know, or whatever it would be. Because if you're not coming from that background of editions that are extremely dangerous and violent, and it's only been 5th edition D&D, that can feel like you, the DM that are using that 9th level spell or whatever, are kind of going against the grain. And you shouldn't feel that way. Like, you need that. You really need the genuine threat and follow through of death. I would say, and I know I've been talking from.
There's a thing.
Let me just kind of point this real quick, because
plot armors for the week.
Yeah, no, for sure, and I'll get to that question, Tomron. I love that, but I like in this Lich's Lair that this Tuesday campaign has entered into.
That scarred you. Deep scars.
Well, that was the Sunday campaign I'm a player in. That was
oh, that's right. Sorry.
Yeah.
Sorry.
But it's tough because like the DM is a fighter in the Tuesday game. So so I get turned into a lich, and I'm truly rocked. And he and I are talking about it, and I'm like, man, I'm not gonna like spoil too much. They realized at the end of last session that they were probably facing a lich. So before Tuesday's session, they knew something was coming. But I was texting with him. I was like, dude, like, this is crazy to me. Like, I promise you, none of this is retribution. Like, they're, you know, like you guys are actively.
This isn't retribution at all. Die again. Lich.
Like, well, no, because I mean, liches are smart fucking enemies, of course it sees somebody in plate and it's like, all right, you're probably not the best at a wisdom save. You know what I mean? And that's something that I found myself being like, I don't know. Oh shit. Like if I disintegrate or if I use this, fuck no, man. Like how dare I not play this Lich to the highest of its ability? Like who cares what's happened to my bard? Who cares what's going on? Like I owe it to this campaign of 3+ years that's now level 18, by the way, to like not pull any punches, to really, present them with the reality of the fact that they were deceived, they were led into a trap, and now they're like, full bore with a Lich in the Lich's lair, and they got to fucking deal with it. But I just recently like really felt that even in a campaign that I'm homebrewed forever with people that I know love me, that I love, where I like, I'll take enormous risks with this campaign. But even with this, I was like, is it too dangerous? But it's like, no, man, this is a fucking party that's caused all kinds of trouble, and now they've been conspired against, and they got.
Your players will love you for being that kind of tough.
Yeah.
I am going to tell you a personal experience. It was a friend of mine, his son. He had noticed all my D&D books, invited me to play in some of his games, and I went and played. Had a great time. But I remember he told me that his son, he's now grown up, has his own kids, but he says to me, he goes, I am terrified to play in a game that you run.
You said this to you or to the son?
Yes, to me.
Okay.
This is a friend's son says this to me. And he goes, I'm terrified to play in a game that you run. And he goes, I mean, I want to so bad. And he goes, but I'm utterly terrified. And he goes, because I mean, just the idea of like fighting a dragon, I mean, it's going to kill us. It's going to slaughter us. You're going to do that to us. And he goes, and I said, so why would you want to play? And he goes, because if we win,
yeah,
we've actually won something. We've beaten something that's memorable. So your players want that. I mean, yeah, maybe there are some that don't. Maybe they'd rather do this. I don't know. I can't speak for everyone. My experience has been at the tables I have been at all across the years. You want that sense of accomplishment.
Yeah.
You want that feeling of we fought them, we whooped them, we got it. Yes, sometimes the die comes up 1 and you're ground into a bloody pulp.
Fuck, sometimes you roll a 6 on your charisma save.
Yes, that's right. And you get splattered and turned into a Lich. But that makes it
big ribs.
Bigger and better for the characters that you play that succeed.
Mm-hmm. Amen.
So
every DM on this chat agrees with you. Like, I mean, there's no way you would be here in this space if you didn't. That's exactly what the truth is. God,
Manny.
Well, okay. So here's the deal.
I was gonna say
please.
one thing. There's a phrase I've heard, and a phrase that's stuck around for a long time, called a killer DM. Okay. And, I go in and the DM just splatters us, right? And yeah, there were some guys that you'd face stuff that was way too powerful and wasn't even close, and they splatter you, and those guys are no fun. Nobody plays with those guys.
Yeah, right.
But there are the harder guys, the guys that still get called killer DMs, that would not stop you from walking into stupid, right?
Right.
Remember earlier we talked about, hey, that you got to learn the lesson that sometimes you run away. The DMs that beat you on those are the guys that you want to play with. Those are the guys that you want to take on. You'd say, I got to X level with this guy. Hunger. And that was that was a little feather in your cap. It's a thing.
Well, look at Tombaron talking about beating this red dragon in 2nd edition. Like,
oh yeah.
You know what I mean? Like that's I mean, it doesn't matter how far removed from it you are. And I mean, This is not apples to apples, but like that's kind of how I feel about beating Elden Ring. I'm like, damn, I don't know if I will ever beat a video game and set down the controller and go and like find my wife and be like, I did it. Oh my fucking God. You know what I mean? Like, just straight up, I was like, I couldn't believe it. Like the weight, and that's going to be us killing Strahd if we pull it off. Like, I despised what happened on Sunday. It felt unbelievable. I was super pissed. I was very twisted up. I was pissed. But at the same time, like, I love that that's the world. Like, you know what I mean? I don't want that to happen, but I wouldn't have it any other way. You know,
Yeah.
which seems oxymoronic, but it's really, really not. And it is about that balance. Like, you don't want to just be getting like blasted, but at the same time, you want to know that this struggle, that you really are going to have to get lucky,
right? But
be strategic, like use your resources, like.
Yeah, and in that it's balanced. You don't, if you walk into something somehow that's just what you're way outclassed, you want to be like, in my mind, I want to be like, oh damn, this is bad news. We need to slip back out the side door right now, back out the side door. And you need to, you want that. You want those experiences. So then you have, hey, there's something I need to strive, because we could beat that maybe later. I don't know.
No,
it's not about always facing challenges you can overcome. That's not the big tick.
I agree. And I also agree with the chat in this sense. You're absolutely right about the deaths being more memorable. And I will never forget the fact that this bard was turned into a fucking lich. But see, this is also the beauty of it that really like shook me, was the fact that this Tuesday campaign started as Dragon of Icespar Peak, has now expanded all the way to level 18, and they're really coming to the end of the campaign. Like, I thought it was going to be ending in like January, February, and some shit really hit the fan. I didn't expect them to do some stuff, and it's just prolonged the campaign. But in that world, I mentioned it briefly, that like one of the last remaining struggles is this war of the gods, of the old gods versus the new, and it's Shantaea and Bala kind of at odds. And I thought there was beauty there in that cycle of death and rebirth, that sort of harvest and reaping, or growth and reaping. And dude, they just been introduced to this lich. It's this old dwarven mine. It's called the Dark Hearth. It used to be a holy space to Shantaea. It was like a mill, and has since been taken over for hundreds of years by Bala. There was a cave-in. She came and offered lichdom to essentially this one remaining orc, who accepted it and made sires out of what remained of the dead of this cave collapse. And the fact, like, I built all this stuff out, like, I had so much of the lore. They're about to walk in and see this tree with its roots growing upward towards the surface, because Bala has, like, corrupted the space that Shantaea once controlled. And the fact that my acolyte of Shantaea bard, 2 days prior, in a different campaign, was turned into a lich. His little phylactery is this pewter box with a blooming, sheath of wheat. It really informed the Tuesday campaign, because I was like, oh shit, man. Like, as above, so below. Like, can you imagine if a blood god turned a denizen of Shantaea into a lich, what then Shantaea would maybe do in turn, in terms of turning someone else into a lich? Like, I guess there's sort of like, there's no accidents, I feel like, in D&D. Like, when the dice tell you something, it can suck. But man, that's typically where like the really juicy bits of story are hidden,
I would agree.
All right, well, guys, we're gonna do it. We're doing the rapid fire. If you guys have never been, Tom Ron, appreciate the bits, you're a ledge. If you guys have never been here for a rapid fire, let me break it down for you. Oh wait, I gotta answer your question, Torm. I gotta answer your question. Yes, we will. The question was a level 20 party. And would you like to answer this first, or should I, Richter? The question is, how do you feel about a level 20 party, DMing for it? Is it more or less, I forget how it was styled, is it sort of like are you excited about it, or is it, it's a problematic spot? I'd be also happy to answer this first.
I don't think DMing at any level is a problematic spot.
Cool.
You've got plenty of tools. Yeah, 20, your players have a lot more tools, so you got to make bigger things for them to throw stuff at.
Exactly.
And that's all it is. And you just have to find that right combination, and accept the fact that no matter how balanced you make it, your players have dice and you have dice, and dice screw you. They will yeah. Take lowly goblins and turn them into homicidal killers that are taking out high level characters, and they will take that mighty dragon and drop him in 2 rounds. Yeah. So, you gotta roll with all of that.
I'm with that. I see that comment as well, Tomaran. I think that is kind of the general idea. It's like, oh man, like this party is so OP. And the two things that I think, I would say fundamentally, I find it exciting. like you know, in a binary sense. You know what I mean? That's so great. Yeah, you got to get those. You got to spot players' dice. But man, if I have like this level 18 party, you think I give a shit that they're in a Lich's lair? Like that's sort of, I think, the beauty that it reaches, where I'm like, there's literally a diamond. I guess I'm not sharing the map. There's an area of this Lich's lair where his phylactery is located that, like, with just a hand wave, which is not my style at all, he basically can almost create like a lower level shadow replica. And this was stolen from chat 2 days ago, so I don't want to take credit for it. It was previously he could replicate himself. Like the Lich could double himself. And in my mind, I'm like, oh, dude, that's insane. Like, no, that's way too much. At level 18, much less level 20, if you're like, oh, should they fight the Red Dragon? Make it 2. Like, throw in a Rakshasa. Like, have Earth Elementals emerge out of the stone. Like, they're for me, there's such a need at lower levels for balancing and for having a more specific way to not necessarily burn resources, but like force the party to make choices. Like, do we want to cast Pass Without a Trace, or do we want to risk it? Or, you know, do we want to maybe burn 2 or 3 healing spots, or do we want a chance taking a short rest at the edge of this forest? Like, those are the situations that I think become a little harder at high level. Is like, you kind of have to find more clever ways. But for me, that's just about having environmental traps, having, you know, 1 or 2 extra heavy hitters that are kind of like glass cannons. I have found level 20 to be freeing, because I'm like, you guys are gods. Like, don't be mad at me. I can't stop you. You know what I mean? And that's what will give me freedom to use Disintegrate, to use Touch of Death, to use, you know, Power Word Kill and shit like that. So I think it's more often a blessing than it is a hindrance. Myself.
And don't forget, if you're talking about dragons specifically, because that's been in the chat a little bit, they can use magic items, folks.
Yeah.
So
can
his
Liches.
horde, and Liches too, their horde, that's all shit you can whip out and use against the party. And then when the party finally beats them, you go, oh yeah, well, that ring that had 4 charges only has 1 now. Hey, it's great.
Yeah.
Have a wish.
Have a wish.
After you've been beaten down. You know, trust me, it's there. You, and that'll make the party make choices. Mage's Disjunction. Screw this crap. I'm done with this guy. And then you slag all your loot. You know, yeah. I mean, that's the kind of stuff that's awesome.
I completely agree. Yeah, there's so many fun ways at higher level to take something like a dragon, like a lich, like whatever, and then put even more on top of it. You know what I mean? Like, that to me is very cool. I'm obsessed with Sibriexes. Like, you know what I mean? Like the like demonic lore keepers, like these big, like brain. I think they're aberrations technically or whatever. But the point is, the Sibriex is like, I think it's CR like 18, and it does all this psychic damage, and it's kind of hard to hit. And yeah, I appreciate the question, Tormaron, truly. And like kind of the if that then what else nature of D&D I find very enticing in storytelling in general. And at level 20, it just feels like there's more ink in the pen, you know, to write whatever you would prefer.
Yeah, well, I mean,
but that's just me.
Going back to earlier editions where you could have level 100 characters, you know, you weren't just fighting the big guys. I mean, you had to mow through all the Moogs to get to the big guys, and Moogs couldn't do a lot, but you know, death by 1,000 cuts. You know, they could take you out if you weren't careful. So you had to deal with that kind of stuff.
Agreed. Yeah, I think it's sort of one of those things where even some of these players that maybe are like, wait a minute, what the fuck? That's too much. It's too tough. And obviously, like, some killer DMs are like toxic, and it is too much, and it's not fun. It's poorly balanced. Like, that exists and sucks. But I think some of the pushback with like, this is too toughness is not even necessarily like someone being like a complainer or whatever, but genuinely they play video games. Like they haven't played a second edition. And so there can be, that for me is the importance of a safety tool. Like with a new table, I will be like, hey, like, you know, this is a like a death positive campaign. How do we feel about that? Like, I don't expect you to enjoy it, but it could happen. Green light. Okay, cool. You know, and once that has been received as a DM, go crazy. Okay, it's time. Here's the deal, guys. If you've never participated in Rapid Fire, aka the Rapid Fire, it is a sequence of binary questions, all right? Yes, no, up, down, blue, red. And there is no wrong answer unless you try to split the middle and be like, oh, both, in which case that is the wrong answer, Richter. There's none of that.
All right.
Also, let me know if this music is painfully loud for you. You good?
No, I'm good.
Okay, great. Yeah, so there's no wrong answer, especially those kind of new chatters. Dump, Holy, Tomaran. Feel free to drop your answers as well, because I am genuinely curious. But before we dive in, Richter, are you prepared for today's round of Rapid Fire? Very well, my friend. At the table snacks, sweet or savory?
Sweet.
Sweet. Okay, you heard it there. Sweet boy with sweet snacks. This is not binary, but you only get one option. When you're creating a character or having players create characters, do you use standard array, point buy, 4d6 drop lowest, or 3d6?
46 drop lowest.
Okay, me too. I think that is intense otherwise. But I respect it.
Have played straight 3d6, and that's rough. That
3d6 to me is the most, point buy to me is the most fair. 3d6 is the most aggressive. Are you kidding me?
Point buy is for sissies. Roll dice.
Let the gods decide.
I'm sorry.
Okay, elf or dwarf?
Dwarf.
I knew it. I knew you'd go dwarf. Gnome or halfling?
Halfling.
Tabaxi or tiefling?
Tabaxi.
Wow, I love that. I didn't expect that. This is the only trick question, and I want you to know that we stand turtles on this show. Turtle or turtle?
Tortussle.
Tortussle. Excellent choice. First time getting that. Bugles up. I love it. Okay. Which is the scarier thing to encounter in a dungeon? A small boy that's lost and somehow immaculately clean, or an old woman wearing rags that won't stop laughing?
Small boy.
The small boy. Okay, why's that?
Immaculately clean. No business being in there.
Agreed. How are you so clean in this dungeon? Okay.
Better BB. Away.
Yeah, agreed. Yeah, there's definitely some questions, especially in medieval times. What makes for a better BBEG in your world? A level 20 wizard or a level 20 warlock?
I'm going to go wizard. I'm not
Everyone's
a warlock
going small
fan.
boy. I love it. Wait, you're going to go wizard. You're not a warlock fan.
Not a warlock fan.
And is that just because you don't like the class, or you think they make poor villains, or something else?
I don't like the class.
Okay, love it. So what would be a better BBEG? A demon lord or a dragon king?
I'm going to go dragon king.
Dragon king. Okay, I love it. In war is his name. Oh, who's sexier, kobolds or goblins?
Ooh, I'm going to go kobolds.
Interesting. I'm more of a dirty boy. I'm more of a goblin myself. Produce flame or firebolt?
Firebolt.
Guidance or mage hand?
Guidance.
Ah, I love it. Mending or spare the dying?
Mending.
Every DM goes mending, and it's so cold. It's so cold. They're like, nah, I fucking hate spare the dying. Counterspell. Oh my god. Oh my god, I'm dying. Okay, where the hell was I? If someone attempts to sleight of hand one of your players, perception check, or do you use their passive perception?
I would use passive.
Respect. That's rules as written. That's how I think it should go. Sometimes, if it's like an egregious moment of subterfuge, I will give them a perception check. But otherwise, that's why we have passive. Okay, a cleric, a bard, and a warlock all walk into a dungeon. Which one walks out?
The cleric does.
The cleric does. I love it. And how does he look when he's walking out?
Weighed down with everybody else's stuff.
He looks encumbered. That's hilarious. If you had to jam yourself into one of the following player categories, which would it be? The edgelord, the min-maxer, the rules lawyer, or the actor?
Okay, give those to me again.
Yeah, I'm
had a
sorry.
glitch.
I'm just getting this weird
Connection
internet
glitch.
spike. Apologies, everyone. If you had to jam yourself into one of the following player categories, which would it be? The edgelord, the min-maxer, the rules lawyer, or the actor?
I would say min-maxer.
Min-maxer? Okay, respect. I am a rules lawyer, but I'd have to go actor. I'm like desperate to lean into some juicy roleplay. That's min-maxer is smart, and I feel like coming up from the early editions, you needed to survive. You know what I'm saying? Okay, D100 or D12?
D12.
Spellcaster or melee?
Melee.
Love it. Giants or dragons?
Giants.
Wow, didn't expect that one. Dungeons or dragons?
Dungeons.
The murder hobo route. That's hilarious. Dungeons. Okay, we don't get that one a lot. Last one for all the marbles. Yes or no? Should cats have dark vision?
I'm sorry. Was that could or should?
Should. As it stands now, they do not in the creature stat block for a cat.
I'm going to say yes.
I love it. Richter, that was so thoughtful. Yeah, I think so too, man. Come on. I mean, you ever seen him moving around the old alley all nimbly-bimbly? Excellent work. Okay, wow. With no further ado, let's give it up for our boy Lord Richter, who has made it through the rapid fire. Wow, my heart is pounding. How you doing? How you holding up?
I'm doing good. I'm doing good.
You're like I made it through.
Kobolds. You had goblins or kobolds. I said
Exactly.
kobolds.
Yeah. Which one is sexier was the question. And then the...
kobolds.
It was
Definitely kobolds, because kobolds are the only creature I've ever heard of that has been used so viciously to make high-level characters run through low levels of the dungeon. Run, mind you, to get down deep where it's safe.
That is so
Because
funny.
they're that harassing with their traps and everything else.
Yes. I think kobolds are definitely more problematic, and I will withhold on any interpretation of why problematic would appear more sexy to you, Richter. I'll leave that up to you, man. I'll leave that up to you. No, totally joking. Man, this has been a blast, dude. Like truly, like coming through. I mean, just appreciate the perspective and like. You know, also moving with me from last week to this week. That was super helpful.
Oh yeah,
to me.
no problem.
I appreciate that.
It is a fantastic place that we are in role-playing games today.
Amen. Amen.
Maybe a second golden age, if you will. I mean, I don't want to, the creation of it and thinking it up, I don't want to say is not, a golden age or a great time to have been playing. It was. But now with it more accepted, with people not being so weird about it and everything else.
God.
And
It's mainstream.
Yeah. I mean, it's scary for me. It's all kinds of scary. I have people come and go, you play Dungeons and Dragons? I'm like, whoa, God, where's the, I'm freaking out. But I love that we're here. I love that there are people that are playing that don't have the kind of baggage they got to worry about somebody popping out and going, you devil worshiper.
Yeah, I know.
Weird stuff like that. I'm grateful for it.
Well, my mom is still with us, so it's not completely out of the question, but but you're right. Like that shift is so pronounced, and I think some of it was just like the satanic panic of the 80s, you know what I mean? Like it was just going down. Well, dude, Richter, like I know that it's inspired incompetence is
Yes.
is the competence is where people can like find you and sort of interact, see you as a player, see some of your stuff. Is there another way that we can, find your stuff or like support you? You know
what? Inspired Incompetence is where I'm at. Go there. If you want me for some reason, you want to talk to me, do whatever, reach out to me there.
Okay.
And I'm pretty open to, whatever. I've done a lot of charity stuff. You just want me to come do something for a one shot or something, I'm happy to do that kind of stuff. Just whatever. I do it because it's fun.
Dude, I love that. And ditto, man. If you guys ever need some sort of like weird kind of like rustic villain to come in and, I don't know, lie to the party and lead them off the way, I'd be more than happy to come in and be a source of deceit and pain for your table. I mean that from the bottom of my heart. Well, word. Well, guys, give it up for Richter. He's a real one. It has been an absolute pleasure to have you come through. Thank you for like bringing all these rad people with you. Tormaron, thanks for the offline follow. Appreciate you being able to catch it, come through, help us out. But everybody else, Family Dump, my boy Holy Plankton, Root, appreciate you coming through as always. Vogley, I'm sure I'm forgetting people, but all of you fine legends that came and joined me. I am playing Elden Ring DLC on Friday. And then I'll be back for more D&D prep on Monday. And I do like to end every D&D stream by raiding another D&D streamer. That actually happened to me the first time that I ever... I felt so bad I was muted when you were raided. No, it's all good. It's all good. Listen, that's how Tormaron and I connected. I completely forgot about that. Like, the first time I streamed D&D prep, I got raided. I had no idea what was happening. I honestly was a bit alarmed. But then I was like, oh, this is positive. And it was Ultra Escalate and Mim, and they could not have been nicer about it. And I don't know. So if you can, please stick around. We're going to raid the Concerned Whale Productions. What a great name. This dude is chillin'. He appears to be doing a World Building Wednesday. And we love that. We love world building. So if you can, please roll over there, support them. And if not, drop me a follow. If you liked what you saw, go over to Inspired Incompetence, support Lord Richter. And I don't know, man. Anything else before we get out of here?
No, just keep your dice warm and love what you're doing.
Amen. Amen. Hopefully joy is a constant part of your equation, because it really only works if it is. At the table and off of it. Okay, well, say what up to Concerned Whale for us. Appreciate that. Yeah, bookmark that, come back to it. Say what up to this guy. He's holding up 2 books. Honestly, this dude looks hilarious and very chill. But one more time, give it up for Richter, guys. Give it up for Inspired Incompetence. Making the time, coming in, dropping some knowledge on us. Truly appreciate that, dude. Okay, here we go. We are raiding. Take care of each other. Take care of yourselves. Peace. We gone. We deucing. We are out. We are out and we have left.